Thank you very much for this opportunity to comment. I would like to express my tremendous disappointment at the recommendation of the staff. I think there are a couple of points I think is extremely important to recognize. One is that the FEIS never actually studied the noise impacts of a surface parking lot. This is a parking lot that was expected, the 1129 lot, which will now be about 1,100 parking spaces, was expected to be put underground within a few years. So you cannot say that there is no impact because it's now going to be there for 25 years and it will be the same. That's simply not the case. Secondarily, this was not meant to be parking that would be used 24/7, and the developer has already indicated that they plan to use this 24/7 for all sorts of uses. Those are burdensome impacts to the community that lives in that area. An earlier point talked about how this was supposed to be a transit-oriented use, and this is a very untransit-oriented proposal for this space. Traffic noise was in fact planned to be significant impact in terms of noise, and of course now 25 years it's going to be significant for 25 years. I don't see how there is no requirement to undergo a supplemental environmental impact review of real data, especially that data that was not actually ever investigated under the FEIS because the plan was so different. The new plan really demands a different solution and a different level of investigation of impacts and real mitigations for what this project now is, which are significantly different than the mitigations that were proposed for something that was a very, very different design and a very, very different build-out. The FEIS acknowledges adverse land impacts that would be caused by locating the arena within 200 feet of a residential zone. They were supposed to be mitigated by the residential and retail use, but in fact, if it's a surface parking lot, it's not going to be mitigated by residential and retail use. Nor is it planned to be below grade, which was the main mitigation for the construction at the time, was that, and the interim use of that space was that it would be put underground, and now in fact there's no plan to do that. Interestingly enough, those comments that the technical memorandum indicated would affect the community was in the neighborhood character section, but the FEIS chapter on the neighborhood character section never addressed the impact of surface parking to begin with. The fact that this is surface parking perhaps in an M1 zone, they would still have to comply with DCP regulations for interior plantings, but the developer argues that it doesn't. The parking and staging, it simply doesn't make sense that you have to stage that far away from where you're building. That happens, building and staging happens in Manhattan within very small, tightly constrained spaces. There's no reason for staging the arena development a block and a half away and using that space for staging. In fact, doesn't make any sense at all. There's no need for the workers to be parking. They don't park right next to every other proposal. In Manhattan, for example, the space is much more tightly constrained. So it really defies imagination that this will actually be used for that purpose, that it needs to be used for that purpose, and there are 692 spaces closer to the arena development that can be used for worker parking and staging. And I suggest that further investigation and analysis needs to be done. Thank you very much.